They took my boy's cake away. They took my boy Natsuki Subaru's cake away with the anime. Okay, I can't keep a serious face. This is 100% an edit. This is actually the original version from the light novel, which you've probably seen. This is a very good coloring, by the way. Here's a closer inspection of it. But this is a scene that light novel fans and web novel fans have been waiting for a good long time now. A very, very long time. And at long last, the anime of ReZero dives into Subaru's speech. That really is a culmination of all of Natsuki Subaru's development since the very beginning, ever since, honestly, he first entered into the world. But if we really want to talk about where it first started, where the progression really started to move, and Subaru's time no longer was stopped anymore, it was that moment when he was in the capital, and Julius beat the living hell out of Subaru. I mean, we even had a flashback within this episode briefly to that, showcasing just what Natsuki Subaru was in the early portions of the series to where he's currently at right now within Arc 5, Season 3 of ReZero. Now, I've talked in length about Subaru's development in my episode reviews, and obviously I'm going to do that once again. But one thing in particular that I think that is a big takeaway from this episode that honestly is just, it's going to blow my mind if I see anything else against it, is that I feel like this episode is definitely going to make those that legitimately do have the ability to read and understand character interactions nuance and stuff. I feel like anyone that legitimately is on the fence about Subaru at this point is probably going to fall in love with him with this week's episode of ReZero. Because obviously there is a lot of people that, actually watch and read ReZero that necessarily doesn't like Natsuki Subaru. And to be fair, that's fine. If you don't like him, like, for instance, if he's not your favorite character or whatever, that is completely fine. But I feel like anyone that legitimately watches this episode could definitely see the development that is being, shown here and just how far he really has grown. He has grown from this very wimpy, weak-like loser, and he is still technically a weak, wimpy loser, even in this current episode, but his mental fortitude has grown to such an exponential level that it's honestly inspiring, because it's like, he's a character that is very flawed. He is a character that obviously has a lot of weakness. He has a lot of, people that, rely on him, and he relies on a lot of other people as well. And because of all these vulnerabilities, he's someone that you could easily relate with, which gets into the whole argument of a perfect character and a very flawed character. To give a very good example of this, let's think of Reinhardt, for example, or let's think of Endeavor from My Hero Academia. These characters are fundamentally very different in terms of the way they're presented. And let's explain, obviously two different series, but like Reinhardt is a perfect character. Like, everything that the story of ReZero tries to paint Reinhardt, he is a perfect knight, a perfect hero. He is someone that can get the job done. He is loved by the world itself, and no matter what he truly tries to do, he will win in the end. He is perfect, and he is that white knight that could do no wrong. And obviously, there is some air and level to him that, is enjoyable. Like, he is enjoyable to watch or read within the story of ReZero, but obviously, he doesn't make a very engaging character, because at the end of the day, Reinhardt theoretically could win, or he's going to win in some way, which obviously a few episodes back, we got to see his fight with Raph, and even though he technically did win it with relative ease, he won in a way that also costed a lot of people's lives. Now, obviously you could chalk this up to being a failure, like he is a failure, and it does show a fatal flaw in Reinhardt that he isn't completely perfect, but in terms of the grand scheme of things, Reinhardt is basically perfect, at least in the story of ReZero, and oftentimes when you see characters like that within stories, they become very boring very quickly, because as much as people like to say they love overpowered characters, as much as people like to say that they want to see a character always winning or just see how powerful they are in comparison to everyone else, if there is no struggle, if there is no desperation, then obviously a lot of people's, enjoyability or connectivity, like, being able to connect with that character might not be there anymore. A good example of this is actually Saitama from One Punch Man, and obviously, Saitama's done very well. I'm just saying that Saitama is an example of a very powerful character. If he wasn't written as good as he is, he would become very boring quickly because he always wins with one punch. That's just how he is. And so it depends on the writer. There is many examples of a writer doing very badly with a poor, like a very perfect character doing poorly with them, or having a very powerful character that's OP and doing very well with them and able to utilize them in the story to where they don't feel like a bona fide plot device, which I mentioned his name earlier. Let's talk about Endeavor. Endeavor is an example of a flawed character, and he is someone that fundamentally the community, when it came to My Hero Academia discussions, not to like get into that story beat, but like he was flawed. He was not a good man. He's a great character, but not a good person. And it made him for a very engaging character to follow for a very long time in My Hero Academia. And I think that that's a good example of why people like characters like that, is because they aren't perfect. You can relate to a certain degree, or at least understand or feel pity for a character if they legitimately are not perfect. And so that gets into the example of Subaru Speech here. And now, as an individual, he is someone that legitimately... he's very wimpy. He's a loser. He's not strong. He cannot do a lot of things by himself. Obviously, with the way his loops work and the way Return by Death works, it looks like he always comes out on top, but we know as the audience, we have that special privilege to see the struggles and stuff he goes through, everything that he goes through that really rips him down to the very foundations of his very being. So, I think that this is what makes the speech so engaging, is because he comes off as someone that is a loser, he is weak, and he tries to play to the hearts of people's weaknesses and how they currently feel at that time. They feel very lonely, isolated, and they can't do anything about it. Subaru starts his speech off with this. It's not a very heroic start to a speech. It sounds like it's very depressing. Like, his very speech at the beginning of what he gives within this episode is just that, a depressing beginning. But then, as it continues to go up and Subaru eventually lets them know he understands how they feel, he has been in their shoes, and he doesn't want to feel alone, that he's the only one that's able to stand up despite being as weak and wimpy as he is, he wants to inspire those to do that as well, because it's like he feels like he's on the bottom of the barrel. He's as weak as anyone potentially could be in this world, which is somewhat true. So when you factor that in, he's wanting to showcase that if he can do something, you guys could stand up as well. And then at the end of his speech, he initiates and says that I am the one that killed the Sin Archbishop of Sloth. And obviously, he could have said this at the beginning. Subaru could have used this to boast his overall image, make himself look very good, showcase that he is a very powerful individual, and that he could definitely get rid of all the witch cultists. And to be real, he probably could have done a good job with that. But it shows development within Subaru, not just from how he was from the first season, but also what he learned from the second season as well, is that he doesn't want to take credit for everything. He doesn't just think about his image and wanting to make his image perfect. He realizes his limitations and flaws, and he truly does believe that he is weak, and he is not very strong-willed. But in reality, we, as the audience and readers of the story, know how strong-willed Subaru is. If there is one thing that is honestly unbelievable, or at the very least insane for his character, is that his mental fortitude is on an entirely different level. And the fact of the matter is, it's really sad to see that Subaru, he has a hard time of accepting love for himself. He doesn't love himself as much as he should, and obviously he's learned to try to better himself in this regard, thanks to Season 2 events, with, you know, his whole conversation with Satala and Echidna. But it's very clear still at this point, he still looks down upon himself. He still feels like he's nothing whatsoever. He hasn't really made any progress. He's trying to be a hero, but he hasn't really done much at all. And in this moment, why so many light novel readers and web novel readers have been anticipating this moment, it was that Subaru was forced to accept that he has made accomplishments and steps to achieve stuff in this world, aka taking down Sloth, or, actually causing the witches cultist to take an L for the first time in history. He is someone that was able to accomplish that. Now, I know there's going to be semantics of people talking about, obviously, Anastasia, Crush's camp, and then Julius helped Subaru with Sloth and stuff, but there's a lot more nuance to it than just that, so let's talk about that before I go any further. Subaru's overall character, he is someone that, was able to bring down the White Well and Sloth, obviously the White Rabbit, with the help of others. And people looking at the situation might be quick to say, Subaru didn't do this, he didn't take down Sloth. it was everyone else. Technically, Julius did the hard work. That's what people would instantly say, because obviously when you think about the fight at the end of Season 1, Julius and Subaru were fighting side by side. Julius was just using Subaru's eyes to be able to fight Sloth, to be able to see the unseen hand. But it was very clear that there was tricks and gimmicks to be able to get around unseen hand, for instance, using like water and stuff to kind of in the area to showcase where the hand was moving through the water and all that, the raindrop, so to speak. You know, there was ways to counter Sloth. But people will say that's thanks to Julius why Subaru won, and in a reality, yes, but it's thanks to Subaru having all this knowledge about the Witch's cultists, to Sloth's ability of Unseen Hand, to where the White Well was going to be located, to how it was going to act, who was potentially going to be in danger, all these different type of things. It was Subaru's knowledge that allowed people to be put in the right position to deal with a certain given problem at that time period. So, as much as Subaru obviously wasn't hands-on for every little detail, he was someone that initiated the whole project. It's kind of like a general. Someone that legitimately, let's say, is overseeing the battlefield of troops and stuff. Obviously, they're not on the front lines, they're not fighting the enemy troops, but they oversee everything, and they initiate what group on which given section of the battlefield goes in which way. And so, in general, it seems like they might not seem like they're doing much because they're not hands-on doing stuff there. They're not the one to, let's say, take down the enemy leader in the last moments when the soldiers capture him, but he is the one initiating the battle plans. And so, yes, the soldiers can be commended, but the general is the one that led the charge and came up with the plans in the first place. So Subaru, in general, does make sense why he is given a lot of credit here. So those that think that Subaru didn't take down Sloth or the White Well, etc., that is completely false. He definitely did. Yes, he had help, and he's definitely someone that wants to give that credit to others as well, but the harsh reality of it is that the society within the world of ReZero has dictated that Subaru is the one that took them down, and nothing is going to change that. So, getting back into the point, the speech is Subaru having to accept that reality. Obviously, this seems like a good thing for him, but it's him accepting that he truly is capable of this, even though he truly deep down doesn't think he is. He doesn't think he's really capable of doing anything. That is a big detail about his character, and once again, it's the extension of his development from Season 2, and let's explain that one. For instance, his development in Season 2 was him coming to terms with he can't do everything on his own. Obviously, he has the ability of return by death and being able to save people and stop bad endings, but he does realize that there is still limitations. Even if he, for instance, dies, there is sometimes he's not able to be in all places at once. There is just stuff happening in given areas that he just will not be able to make it to in time, because that's just, he's one person. So he needs to be able to understand a given situation and give people tasks to be able to handle them without him actually being there. And that was the whole point of, like, Garfield versus Elsa, is that Subaru trusted Garfield with such a huge moment to be able to at least stall or even defeat Elsa in that fight, because if Elsa was able to run rampant, do whatever she wanted, obviously everything Subaru had planned in that moment at the mansion at the end of Season 2 would have completely came undone. So Subaru has realized he needs to utilize those around him to be able to accomplish his goals and trust and rely on them, because he can't do everything. So that's the point here, is that this is an extension of that Subaru has accepted he can't do everything on his own. He's accepted that he wants to be a hero, but he feels very weak. But now, the next stage of his development that is taking place here is him accepting that he is also capable of doing things on his own as well. It might sound like regression to his character, but it's not. It's more of him accepting and loving himself. That's at the very least what you see taking place here within this episode, him trying to go that path. Now, has he accepted himself yet or loved himself yet? No, but he's trying. Now, with all that being said, let's get into a few other points. I have been on a tangent long enough about just the intricacies of the development and stuff and how people would perceive Subaru. Let's actually get into some of the elements here with Al, and that's, I think, incredibly important. So, Subaru in this moment, everybody is telling him, like, hey, you need to do this speech. Like, Garfield's the one that pitches the idea, after Subaru is basically saying, Anastasia, you can do this speech, you can inspire people, you're a royal candidate, and Anastasia's like, no, I couldn't. It's like, yeah, I'm a royal candidate, but I can't relate with the people, and that's how the people would perceive it, and this gets into the point of Subaru's speech, how he was trying to be relatable to everyone in the shelters, is that Anastasia is someone that obviously is a royal candidate, she's basically a princess, she potentially could become the queen of the kingdom, and because of her overall status, it might seem like she's going to be heavily protected, she's not going to be in much danger, and obviously everybody else is kind of like peasants or peons basically in comparison to her, so it's like, how would she be able to understand their struggle? So she realizes her speech would come off very fake. if she was to talk with people. As for Julius, yes, he is a proud knight and people would recognize his name, but at the end of the day, the reason why people wouldn't necessarily like Julius's speech, and a big detail of that, is that the witch cults have attacked the town. The town is under siege, people are obviously dying, people are in fear and hiding in shelters. They'll probably think, like, why is the knights not doing anything to stop this? Why has it already happened? Obviously, they'll be quick to blame the knights. So, it would only, in turn, make the situation worse if they heard Julius pop up and talk. Even Reinhardt, to a degree, might actually initiate a negative reaction, because obviously, if he's here, why has he done anything? Because everybody obviously has probably heard the strength and the actual charisma that Reinhardt has. Why has he not stopped this already? So yeah, it would be a lot of negative reaction if Reinhardt or even Julius was to talk in this situation. As for anyone else within the room, clearly they're not capable of it. Crush might have been able to give a good speech, but we know her current situation, it's not good. So it's just like, yeah, Subaru was completely at a loss. He never factored himself into being able to talk and inspire people around within the entire city. And so when Garfield pitches the idea, the reason why this is pitched in the first place is because Garfield comes from a level of experience, and he understands what Subaru is capable of. It goes into, once again, development of Season 2. Now, Garfield was a young boy that literally, he didn't want to leave Sanctuary. He felt like, he wanted to stay out of his mother's way. He wanted to, basically just hold himself up in, like, a Sanctuary, never leave. He was a scared little boy that didn't want to progress. His time, necessarily, it stopped. He was just afraid of his past. He couldn't accept his past. He couldn't accept that his mother loved him. All these different type of things. And Subaru basically broke through that wall, stepped all over Garfield's emotions, and basically told Garfield, wake the hell up. We're getting out of here, and you're going to face your future. You're gonna face what is coming instead of sitting here and doing nothing and becoming stagnant. It's a very good moment for Garfield's character, and he realizes that Subaru is someone that can inspire those around him with relative ease. He just has a way about him. And so, him initiating the conversation, it's like, hey, why don't you give a speech? It's perfect. It makes a lot of sense, and it comes off very organic from Garfield, especially with what happened at the end of Season 2. Now, with that being said, we need to talk about this Al stuff. So I'm just going to let these subtitles play, and then we're going to talk about it. So, you have this scene where everybody's given their blessing to him, and then as he's saying stop overestimating, this is what Al says. But don't do it, brother. Not really all that great. And then, obviously, Garfield grabs him. So, that dialogue is very important. And I guess, let's segue into that. So, Al just straight up had the most important words to say in this moment. At first glance, those that are anime only, or just looking at surface level, they might look at this as Al coming off very rude. And to be fair, he did come off very rude. He basically said that, is there really anything worthwhile from this guy? He basically is like, is Subaru really all this great? He points this out. And obviously, what Al is saying here is very true. He's speaking to the weaknesses within Subaru's heart. This is legitimately what Subaru feels about himself. What Al said literally took the very words from Subaru's mind and let everybody hear it. That's exactly what was said here. And this had the most important effect, I think, on Subaru than even Garfield did in this given moment. Al's words had Subaru face the harsh reality of the world and what hell he was about to step into if he truly commits to making a speech to everyone within the city. And so let's explain that one. So basically, Garfield gets very upset about this little interaction. He's like, how dare you insult, my boss and all that, the captain. And it makes good sense why Garfield would get like this. We've always seen that Garfield is very temperamental. He gets very angry when something doesn't go his way or he just doesn't like something. We've seen this throughout all of Season 2. So this is very in character with him. Someone insulting someone he cares about deeply, he's going to get very defensive. And this scene, woo boy. 11 readers, you know what I'm talking about. It's fascinating. I really do feel like the animators of this scene, or at least the director or storyboarder or whatever, definitely has peaked at the content of, like, the web novel, light novel. I'm very certain of it. The current content at that. Because the break time stuff, with what happened with that, like, Chibi short series, with revealing that I is someone from Subaru's world as well, from Japan, it definitely hints that they are very well aware of the current events of the story. But anyways, I don't want to go any further with that. All I'm going to say is that Al's words had probably the biggest impact on Subaru. It comes off as very rude and angry, but Subaru needed to hear these words from someone else. Someone that was of opposing opinion, saying that, is he really all that great? And Subaru still agrees with this. He realizes he's not all that great. And, you have Al even say you're stepping into hell, you can't handle all this burden by yourself, it's going to be a struggle. But then as Al's saying, you're going to struggle a lot, this burden's going to be heavy, Subaru's like, basically it's just another Wednesday for me, it's business as usual, and he does his speech. And I just love the little flashbacks to, like, the different deaths and stuff, the people he saved. Subaru's just come to terms with death and life as well. He's come to accept and love life a lot more than he used to, and, he realizes that he wouldn't take anything back. Obviously, every death he had was very important, and it helped him grow to where he's at right now and help everybody be there. He saved everyone, and so because of that, he takes it in stride, and he realizes that it's going to be very hard. He's always dealt with challenges, a lot of deaths in the past as well, and it's going to be one of those other things as well. He's not going to shy away from it, he's not going to run away from it, he's going to face it head on and get it done as best as he possibly can. And if he does die along the way, he's not going to give up. That continues the development he got from Rim in Season 1 of ReZero. So, now that I finally have discussed all of the speech, okay, we do need to talk about one thing in particular, and I think the last thing to really discuss is Amelia's growth. I think that this is very important. It showcases, once again, the progression she's had from Season 2. Obviously, Amelia was in a very tough spot. She couldn't remember her past thanks to her contract with Puck. We know that she finally realized everything that happened to the forest. She's accepted, being a half-elf, people calling her a witch. We've learned a lot about her character. And this episode really showcases her level of attachment to Subaru, but also her realizing what she can do as well. She is not a weak-willed individual that will sit there and be doing nothing. She will do everything in her power to be able to help out her famous knight. And it's very beautiful. It's very cute. I love this entire segment with her trying to give as much information as she possibly can to Subaru in some shape or form. It demonstrates that Amelia realizes that Subaru is going to put himself in continuous danger even if she doesn't want to. And so, in her own way, she wants to make it as easy as possible for Subaru to be able to get to her, and she wants to remain strong as well. It's very powerful messaging. It shows that she isn't just a typical damsel in distress. She's doing her own part, and she is doing everything in her ability to be able to help out Subaru that she has the utmost trust in. Very beautiful episode of ReZero, honestly. It is just astounding how high quality ReZero can be. I know some people might say that this episode of ReZero is very slow, but it's a perfect breather episode before we get into the true battlefield that Natsuki Subaru is initiating. So, I'll leave it at that. Thank you so much for watching, and, if you enjoyed the video, do leave a like. It does help me out a lot. This is a very long video. It takes a lot of time to really edit this, but also just, get my thoughts together on these videos. So, if you do enjoy this content, do leave me a like. It does help me out a lot. It lets me know you guys enjoy these videos. But be safe, stay healthy. Chibi out.